Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. If you're interested in the latest information from today's leading experts, Mission Evolution is the place to be. This hour, we'll examine a police detective's approach to paranormal investigation. Ghost hunters and paranormal investigators have become relatively common in our world. Yet, what do they do? How do they do it? And what training is involved remains a bit of a mystery. Should, God forbid, a person find they have need of a paranormal investigator, how does one find a practitioner that's knowledgeable, professional, and well educated in the field? With us this hour to take a deeper look into paranormal investigation is Lawrence F. Lawson. A law enforcement professional for more than 40 years, Larry has been actively investigating and researching the paranormal for more than 10 years. He has a Bachelor of Science Degree in Management from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. During his law enforcement career, Larry has served as a corrections officer, patrol officer, detective supervisor, and as director of Florida Regional 11 Law Enforcement Training Academy. Larry also served as a Florida certified law enforcement instructor. After having paranormal experiences during his career, Larry founded the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Outreach arm of the FBPI Indian River Hauntings. His website, paranormalfbi.com. Larry, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, it is a pleasure to be with you again. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, we've had some fun before. We'll certainly have some fun today. So, Larry, tell me, given your amazing, quite frankly, law enforcement career, what drove you into the paranormal field?
In some ways, the same thing that brought me into the law enforcement field, and that was to solve the question. I'm a detective by trade. That's what I spent a good portion of my career doing, as well as being a law enforcement educator. And this question of what exists after life on this earth is probably one of the most pressing questions that people have been asking since the beginning of time. And it's also one of the greatest mysteries, in my opinion, of humankind. So that's kind of what drove me to it. I mean, I didn't have an experience as a child like a lot of people just describe. My first experience was as a law enforcement officer, and it intrigued me enough. And then I've always had an interest in the unknown. Once again, that's what drove me to be a detective. And this was just a natural outreach, actually. And people have said to me before, like, "You're a cop. How can you believe in this stuff?" I mean, the way I described it was, if you had a burglary to your home and a cop came and immediately made judgments about who did it and what the cause was and what was taken, and just turned and walked out based upon their preconceived beliefs. Would that solve your problem, or would you rather have somebody that comes in and has an open mind, looking at all the evidence, and after looking at the evidence is able to discern or come up with an answer? Oh, the second one, of course. Well, paranormal investigators really no different.
So, Larry, have you, when you come in with an open mind, have you had enough evidence that you believe in the paranormal?
Yes. Now let's talk about what the paranormal is. That's
That
anything
would be good.
outside. Yeah, it's anything outside the norm. Let's face it. Things have been happening with individuals for generations, for millennium. They don't always have the answers to it. I have my personal belief as to what it may be, but I'm a cop. I have to have evidence. I have to have evidence that I can take to court to prove to a jury of my peers whether or not somebody's guilty of a crime. In this case, I want to collect enough evidence to bring to a jury of my peers proof that it either exists or that it doesn't exist. And that's a tack that I don't think a lot of investigators take, is to go where the evidence leads them. Have I found evidence that the paranormal exists? The best way for me to answer that is I have found evidence that there's something beyond what we know in our regular lives is going on.
Well,
That,
we have, five senses, and those are limited. And we know
mhm,
that scientific instrumentation can reach well beyond those five senses. And once
mhm,
that happened, then that became real to us. But for
mhm,
people that aren't extra sensitive and start to pick up on the energetics going on around them, which to me would be part of the paranormal,
mhm.
how do they discern that there's something there to look at?
Well, most of the time, let's face it, it's what people are experiencing. People like to take shots at the TV shows, and yes, it is for entertainment, and I think folks do need to understand that. But how to put this? People have been seeing things for, as I said, millenniums. The TV shows have brought it out, maybe made people more aware of it, maybe made some people quicker to say, "Ah, that's something, it's grandma visiting me or whatever." Um, the truth of the matter is we all see things at certain times. Most of the time we can explain it. I don't know if I'm quite getting this out right. We just don't know what the answers were. Me, I'm as sensitive as a rock. But I know that I have seen enough things. In fact, I've seen three what I consider to be what they call full-bodied apparitions. Now, what caused that? I don't know. I know what I've seen, I know what I've experienced, but what we don't have is the evidence to prove exactly what it was. Now, you did talk about the scientific equipment that does go outside the five senses. We always don't know what that exactly means, in my opinion. So I look at the human brain. That's one thing to look at, and I like to tell folks that I speak to. You've heard individuals discuss that we only use 20% of our brain. The truth of the matter is, I believe we use 100% of our brain. We only know what 20% of it does. So there's a whole lot in what's going on in that bundle of gray matter that we really truly understand. So is this evidence of the other side, or is it us? We don't know. And that's the vision, the focus of my organization, is try to find out what the answer is and to go where the evidence leads us.
Well,
That-
Larry, now you've got me extremely intrigued, and I'm sure the audience is as well. Could you share some of your experience? Was this after you were an investigator or before?
Oh, well, it was actually my first one was I was just a young, just gotten into the law enforcement field. I was in corrections in Miami, the Dade County Jail in Miami, and I was 20 years old, still full of vim and vigor for the profession, and I was sent up to a floor, and I was put in the control booth, and I was looking out the control booth, and there were three wings. There's a lobby, there's the elevator here, three wings of cell blocks, and there's a walkway that goes around them. And there was an open or a barred door at the end of each walkway. And I'm just sitting there and saw a person walk by. Wasn't anything ghostly, wasn't anything see through. I frankly thought it was our lieutenant who snuck up the back stairs to catch us sleeping or whatnot. So I hollered at the two guys in the room with me, "Hey, the lieutenant's on the catwalk. You better get out there and, check it out." So they went flying out the back door. Now, interestingly enough, is that the stairway was right behind our booth. And then the only other way was the elevator. Nothing came through the elevator. So the guys went out, one went right, one went left. They walked around. There's nobody out here, Larry. Well, I know what I saw. It wasn't a flash. It wasn't something out of the corner of my eye. It was very clear. It was a tall male. And I said, "Well, I'm telling you, I just saw him down the end of the block." "Well, there's nobody out here, Larry, but this place is haunted anyway." That was my very first experience with the paranormal. I had never really seen anything, I hadn't even really thought about it at that point. So that was my first one. And a couple of other times are in here in Florida at a places that we have been working at. I twice saw an individual full figures. One was walking across the hall, and the other was just standing there until they disappeared. Now, one of two things have happened there. Gwilda. I'm either making it up or I saw it. Now, on the I saw it side of it, I spent 40 years as a law enforcement officer, carried a gun and a badge, passed all my psychs. I'm fairly well educated, and I know what I saw. There is no question about that. So, what caused that? Why did I see these figures? And that's what we're endeavoring to find out. Is it something from the other side trying to contact us? Is it another dimension, as Einstein talked about in his general theory? Or is it something else? Is it something my mind has created? Like I said, I have my own personal beliefs, but the evidence is where it's at. And that's what we're striving to find out.
And I love hearing you say that. And we're just about out of time in this segment. But I love hearing you say that, Larry, because so many people go out there already convinced that there's paranormal, which is fine, already
Hmm.
convinced that there's ghosts, which is fine, except then everything they see is a ghost. They don't bother to go any further than
Hmm. Hmm.
what they're perceiving at the time and finding something to back it up. So on the other side of this
Bingo.
break, we'll go into this backup.
Uh, I'll look forward to talking about that.
All right. Larry and I will return very shortly,
Yes.
so you don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Hello again. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us this hour discussing paranormal investigation from a detective's perspective is Lawrence F. Lawson. His website, paranormalfbi.com. Larry, as promised, we were going to get in a little bit to what's the difference between grabbing a set of dowsing rods that you've never used and I have an image and what you're trying to do.
What we're trying to do is collect evidence in a way similar to what I would do to conduct a criminal investigation. Now, getting back to the first part of that, the initial thing is training. Now, I have put on training courses myself on how to use equipment and how to use the proper interview techniques and actually have the right mindset for this. But also, training with equipment. My team, we train on it. We make sure that everybody knows how everything works, the theory behind how certain things work. I will tell you this: as far as equipment in the paranormal, there's been very little change over the last 20 years. There's been very little advancement, and that's one thing that I still am pushing and hoping to improve upon is the creation of new, more scientific gadgets that we can use that will also offset the stuff that we can't always put our finger on.
Well,
Um,
Larry, sorry to interrupt, but this was going to be one of my questions. Isn't the equipment that you're using now kind of patched over from some other purpose? I mean, is anything really designed for paranormal investigation itself?
Not specifically. No, well, there are some things, but they are all related to items used in the past. Your typical EMF detector, for example, is not much different than what an electrician would use to find wires and walls. So a lot of that equipment is the same. A lot of the radio equipment is the same. It's just monkeying with how the transmissions are received. So yes, you're correct, and that's one of my bugaboos is have not created there's not been enough experimentation and creativity in the world of equipment to come up with something new. Now, there's been some great advances. I'm not going to lie. I'm a personal, I don't know if we want to bring up the names of a piece of equipment on the show, but there's a piece of equipment that I love to use because you set it up and it measures everything from a temperature, humidity, vibration, electromagnetic fields, everything like that. And what you do is you put a SD card in it and you sit it there and you conduct your investigation. And let's just say we do pick up a bit of evidence, whatever it is, a voice or whatever, at a certain time. Well, then I can take this device that's been sitting there and put it into the computer and graph. And at that same time, if I've got an anomaly on there, such as the humidity suddenly went up, the temperature suddenly dropped, you've got a vibe, whatever, at the same time we got that voice, well, now you're starting to corroborate evidence. And
So
that
you're
to me is important.
triangulating then.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel is the important place that we need to go. I got to tell you, there are some things I don't think we'll ever be able to answer. You yourself are blessed with a gift that I certainly don't have, although we've discussed this. Um, so it's more difficult for me as a person without those gifts to maybe experience or see things that somebody in your case would. And that makes it difficult. So how does somebody like me answer? Well, we've got to find equipment that bridges that gap between the two of us. Now, we talked a little bit before the break about, oh, people here, they pull out their dowsing rods, they've never used them before, and they get some activity, and they now are claiming they've had contact with the other side. And everything after that, everything is paranormal. I believe we talked about before. Well, it's not so different on the other side too. There are some people that are so skeptical that Abraham Lincoln could put up a chair and sit down in front of them and say, Larry, this is what's going on the other side, and they still won't believe it. So we do have folks on both sides of it. What we have to do, Gwilda, is we have to come together. Folks that are skeptical, folks that have a belief, and it's of course like the middle of the road, and we have to bridge that gap. Folks like me have to understand more clearly what you're able to do, or us folks that are truly mediums. And there's good ones and there's bad ones, and that's a story for a different show. But we've got to bridge that gap to try and find those answers, because neither side can be totally quantified. Neither side can be completely proved. So what do we, instead of arguing about it, and our side's worse about this, oh, it's my evidence, you can't see it, or oh, this is my place, you can't go there. We got to stop that, come together and come up with some answers if we truly want to find out what the answer is.
Rather than being driven by ego and
Ego, yeah,
proprietorship, right? So
exactly.
the it's my understanding, or at least in my experience, that the things, the evidence, the energies, the frequencies that we consider the other side are well more refined, well more hard to detect than what you get in the room or the wall with the electrical wires or this or that. Do you see any advancement in our equipment to be able to start to reach out further? I know that, say
Mm,
NASA and, various scientific entities have, no pun intended, uh, have much more refinement than what we can get our hands
hmm.
on.
True.
But do you see coming soon where we can, because we're kind of like out there with a club, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think that's, like I said, one of the more frustrating things for me. The advancement in equipment really hasn't been what I would prefer it to be. I think, and this is my opinion only, that if there is to be communication with the other side, our best bet is through radio waves, frequency, and vibration. That is my opinion on where I think we have the best opportunity. And there has been some decent advancement on that. Not enough, but it's getting there. We've had some pretty interesting experiences with equipment that we have that cycles through radio frequencies very quickly. Now, a lot of argument on that you hear a lot of radio stations, and that's very true. You've got to be able to discern what you're hearing and be able to tell the difference. And we've had some pretty remarkable things happen with that piece of equipment. Now, you talk about dowsing rods. I'll tell you right now, my crew, we use them, but we use them with other things. We use them with other pieces of equipment at the same time. We are videotaping everything. We are audio taping everything, so that if if we get any stuff, that we're able to actually put it together. Another thing, and this is, I think, a little off the subject, but we also do a lot of historical research.
Mm,
We get a
that's
name, we get stuff.
important.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's vital.
Yeah.
If if you're going to research the paranormal, you must love history, and you must appreciate history, and you must use history. For example, you get a name Billy Bob in an investigation, but there is no sort of Billy Bob attached to that. Well, it doesn't help you too much. You can go by the theories that spirits come and go, but seriously, if you get a name, and we've had this happen, that we're able to connect with the property or the venue, that can be significant.
Absolutely can.
Not
And
conclusive, but significant.
with dowsing rods, just so you know, I witched my own well up here, and I use
Oh,
dowsing rods to do it. And
they.
they'll call me in to do that.
Hmm.
They're very very accurate. They've been witching wells with them forever.
Absolutely,
you
all
know.
energy based, and
Mhm.
so we've had some success with them, but we never use them by themselves,
Yeah,
ever.
because you don't know what you're getting. You could be getting a
Exactly.
water source. I mean, our intention drives it, probably. Yes.
Oh, that's an interesting, that's a very, very interesting topic. Their own intentions. I'm not convinced that, I won't say everything, but a lot of what we experience could be us and our intentions. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, pretty fascinating. And that's something I'd like to get a little deeper into, but I'd like to back up a little bit, Larry. You said
Hmm.
that when you're doing your training, you train in how to interview. So
Hmm.
go into that a little bit. Are they interviewing the people that have called you in because they think they have something going on in their home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't. We'll get somebody will ask us to come in and take a look at a venue because they've got some strange things going on in there, and we'll go in and we'll conduct an interview. And sometimes those interviews, frankly, can get a tad bit uncomfortable because I have to ask questions. Is there anybody in the house that has mental health issues? Is there anybody in the house that is using any type of narcotics, psychotropic drugs, whether prescribed or not? Is there anybody that's done anything, any kind of silly type of rituals or anything in here? Yes. So we definitely interview the folks that are bringing us in. And frankly, more times than not, we've said, well, it's been nice talking with you, but we really think that you need to, talk with your doctor first. And if your
Get
doctor
back on your
feels like,
meds.
no, and I'm a little more sensitive than that. But I think you should go talk to your doctor. And if your doctor feels like this is something that we should do, then call me back. And of course, we don't hear that because, frankly, a lot of folks, and it's no malintent on their side. Folks, they get it can be an issue of emotion that their emotions have gotten a hold of them. Maybe maybe a relative just died recently, and they're so intent of reaching out, things start to happen. But we've had one case where my the lead investigator for our team and I went out, and this house was I got called by the police department. A local police department called me and said, "Larry, you got to come out. We're in this place." And while we were there, Bible flew across the room, and my officer really was startled. And you need to come out. So okay, so we went out there, and the house was destroyed. I mean, the holes everywhere, and we don't know how this is happening. Take too long to go through the whole story, but we basically found out through just half an hour of working, it was being done by somebody in the house. And what happened was the Bible flew because the officer turned the other way and an individual took it and flung it. And we were able to discern all that. So, yeah, that happens. And so, yes,
Yeah,
that's where interview techniques come into play.
come
And
into
we,
play. Well,
and
we're
we enter
we're about out of time in this segment,
again.
but yes, we are. We're having so much fun. It goes so fast. But I do understand that you, as a detective, were involved in researching cults and that sort of thing. So I'd like
This
to
is true.
touch in on that and how it
Sure.
plays in here on the other
Okay.
side of this commercial break.
Thank you.
Larry and I will be right back to continue this fascinating discussion. So you say right there, this is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Hello again. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing ghost hunting at its finest is Lawrence F. Lawson. His website, paranormalfbi.com. Larry, I'm going to tell you what prompted my next question. That's when you were talking about the interview, how one of the questions you ask is, has anybody been doing any funky rituals or anything? And I understand you're known as a law enforcement expert in crimes involving the occult and
Yep.
deviant groups. How do those relate? The question that you ask and your experience there.
Well, this goes back into the late '80s. My expertise was crimes against children, and we back in the late '80s. I don't know if you remember, but there was a big scare with cult satanic groups back in those days, and there were a lot of people. And I actually had a case that the perpetrator used those techniques to subdue the children. Not saying the individual was a Satanist, but he certainly did use the techniques found by cult groups and by Satanists to get control of these kids. And it was more of a technique than he used than I believe, was an actual practitioner. But what happened here was after studying this and becoming gaining a greater understanding of cults, cult leaders, and what cults were. Um, I began to get calls from different agencies to look at everything from uh, religious cults to Afro-Caribbean cults. And you got to understand, being in South Florida, we dealt with everything from voodoo, Palomayombe, Santeria down from Miami. So we are constantly dealing with that anyway. And when you put all that together, I spent a lot of time studying working cases that involved everything from child abuse to animal rituals. So taking that information. Started to get asked to put on some courses. So for a number of years, I taught cults and deviant groups investigations to law enforcement officers, not only in Florida, but in different parts of the country.
That's fascinating. So, from that experience, excuse me, from that experience, did you find that those rituals can actually create some kind of paranormal disturbance?
I can't say that. Most of the ones that unless it was some of the Afro-Caribbean cults, as I said, Santeria, Palomayombe, voodoo, things like that, that certainly had an effect on the practitioners. When it came to more of the uh, occult types of groups, it was more individuals that were using those techniques to manipulate and harm their victims. Now, I did deal quite a bit with some standard religious cults, some that considered themselves to be Christian, if you will, but they had a very strong leader who had a bunch of people that were following him, and they basically would keep them confined. So I had dealings with that. So mostly, frankly, what I dealt with in that sense was the way people manipulated the minds of others. And it was amazing what that did to some of these individuals. Now, when you talk about the African Caribbean cults or even the satanic type of groups, there were a lot of rituals. I can't sit here and tell you that because of that, I observed a rip in the paranormal fabric, if you will.
Okay. Excuse me again. So, let's back up one more time. And
Okay.
Larry, what is a ghost?
Wow, that's a question I ask during my seminars and whatnot. What is it? I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Anybody that tells you they know what a ghost is either lying or fooling themselves or a little bit of both. Nobody can tell you what that is at this point in time. Now, I have friends that I believe to be very legitimate, real psychics that have a view of the other side. But the honest ones will tell you the same thing. We really don't know what it is or what the entire picture is. Um, a ghost is how we describe seeing something that is beyond our realm. So I look at it more as a general term. Most people like to look at the term of ghosts as it being some sort of spiritual energy of those that have passed before us. Um, that's like I said, I have my own personal beliefs as to what it is, but that answer to that question is still up in the air. So to say what a ghost is really at this point not a great question because we don't know.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, in your investigations, have you found that there are different kinds of ghosts? I mean, people make, categories like poltergeists or um, some ghosts that they go about their thing. They
Residual
come, yeah, residual,
residual or
or they,
non-sentient. Yep.
uh-huh, yeah,
Uh,
or
we
ones that
ha-
actually interact with you.
well, I'll give you two answers to both of that. For starters, poltergeists, there's a whole lot of discussion on that as to what exactly that is. And I think a lot of folks do relate the term poltergeist. Poltergeist is German for Geist being German, a fun-loving or mischievous ghost. That's the word I'm looking for. Mischievous ghost. Um, what caused that? A lot of people have said that young adolescent girls are a great conduit for that because of all the energy they're producing. Um, so that's one explanation for poltergeist. It's just something that is an energy that's tearing through the house and doing whatever it wants.
So
You
let me
meant.
back you up a little bit on that
Mhm,
so we understand what you're saying. So the young adolescent or pubescent girls,
mhm,
because of all the hormonal surges, are
right.
creating phenomenon without intending to or without doing it physically.
Well, and there's two schools of thought there. I think generally speaking, folks that are looking at it uh, scientifically will say yes, that hormonal energy is creating some sort of disturbance in the force, if you will. Other folks will talk about the poltergeist using that energy to manifest themselves. Um, don't know. Once again, there's been lots of people have talked about it. There's certainly tons of videos out there. Most of them are of questionable veracity,
Mhm.
but it 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 has been out there, and once again, it's one of those phenomenons that people have talked about for millennium. You've talked about sentient, non-sentient, or intelligent haunts. Uh, or residual haunts. Now, I'll give you an example. There is a place, and our friend Rob knows it well, the Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. The owner of that restaurant, a really fine lady, Fran Adams. She's a former county commissioner. Her husband was the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida at one point. Her daughter, who now pretty much Aunt Susan, who runs it, is also a current county commissioner. These are intelligent, educated businesswomen. Fran talks about while they were rebuilding the restaurant from what it was originally. She, on a number of occasions, saw a woman in white go across the floor, literally float across the floor. That woman did not react at all. Straight ahead, same thing every time. Uh, we would usually refer to that as a residual haunt. Meaning it's almost like on a tape that's looping and something causes the loop to go through again. Now, there's a big argument. I wouldn't say a big argument. There certainly is a discussion within the field. Is that really a ghost or is that just trapped energy? And that's something that is certainly up for discussion right now. What is it? Is it actually the spirit of somebody else or is it just energy? I've had some people even argue that it's an actual spirit, but they're just caught in a time loop themselves. We don't know. An intelligent haunt would be one that will answer to you and actually respond to you. And my favorite version of that, and once again, I'm either making it up or it did happen. One of my folks were in the old school in Fellsmere, and we got a little boy. We asked the question, is there anybody here? Or is this the room you like to be in, Billy? I think is what the question was. Clear as a bell, we get a little boy, and there were no kids in that entire building. Yes, sir. Clear as a bell. So
Wow.
that would we would consider that an intelligent haunt. Um,
So all you got from him though was a verbal, and did you record
oh yeah,
it?
oh yeah,
Is
it's
that
yes,
where you picked it
absolutely.
up? Did you hear it, or did you find it
No,
later on the recording?
no, that's excellent. There's disembodied voices and there's EVPs. An EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, is that voice that you don't hear that ends up on your recorder. And that's another discussion we can have how that theoretically occurs. Disembodied voice, which I also have this on my website too. I had four folks in the basement of the old school, and they were talking, and somebody's phone goes off. Can I help you? And four adults begin to laugh because that's all there were, four adults down there. And then suddenly you hear a fifth laugh, and it's a kid. You can't mistake it. And they turn and they look at each other. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard a kid laugh. I heard a kid laugh too. And then one of my folks down there, who was also a deputy sheriff, says, "Yeah, and I recorded it on my phone."
Wow.
And so we have a recording of that. But that was a disembodied voice. They actually heard that as compared to an EVP, which was recorded.
So an EVP, the ones you're talking about, you
Hmm.
don't hear them at the time, but then
Correct.
when you go back over your equipment and your recordings, you find it.
Hmm.
But the
Correct.
one you were talking about with the little boy with the laughing, it sounds like you got
Laughing.
both the EVP
Oh yeah.
and the hearing it for
Two
yourselves.
separate occasions, but yeah, we got both in that building. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So,
Just
and once
amazing.
again, how does that happen? Now, Golden, we know each other. I My reputation means the world to me, and I never been in question. So we got this evidence. So what was it? How did it happen? It didn't. It came from somewhere. The question is, where did it come from? There is the answer we seek.
Mm. And do you feel like you're getting close to the answer?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We had a case recently that we're still working on, frankly, and we were investigating a place. I'll just say in our area here, and we got the name of a little girl, and through our equipment, dowsing rods included, and we taped it all. We got a little girl whose name was uh, Belinda or Lindy, and she was about 5 years old.
Well,
And
Larry, I hate to do this, but we're
oh
going to have a
no,
cliffhanger.
okay,
So we'll
all right,
pick up on Lindy on the other side of a break.
all right,
Please stay with us as Larry and I continue this very interesting discussion and to explore professionalism and the paranormal investigation. This
yeah,
is
look
Mission
forward to that.
Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. This hour, our expert guest is Lawrence F. Lawson. His website, paranormalfbi.com. Larry, we had to leave a cliffhanger on the last segment, and you were about to tell us about a little girl by the name of, and I wrote it down, Lindy. So would you
Lindy, yeah.
please continue?
Lindy or Belinda are the names we got. So we got this information. It was pretty. We were getting it pretty solidly. It was coming up. We got the names on our what we call our spirit box, and that's a box that we use to that goes through radio frequencies very quickly. And the rods, everything else we had. It was really kind of amazing. We were excited about it because now we got something that we can look into. We can do some research on, and we got the impression that perhaps this child died of very oh terrible tragic circumstances.
Hmm.
So I even got to the point where I was when I was and we were talking about interviews before. We interview also. You got to use certain these techniques to interview the other side, to ask questions. I won't mention names, but there are some shows out there that feel they can just ramrod. You must speak to me because I'm here. Well, that's all silly stuff. So I'll in interviews and when we're getting information, I'll continue to just talk as if I'm talking with you. In this particular case, I said, so tell me, do you like to watch TV? And the answer we got was no. Well, do you like to listen to radio? Yes. Do you like, and I started mentioning some radio shows and I mentioned Amos and Andy. I got a response, yes. Okay, so now I've got an era to look at, 30s and 40s. So we were pretty excited. We thought we might have something here. My eldest daughter, my eldest child, my daughter was a police officer in this town, so I of course had her start looking for records and things for me. There were no records, but back at that period of time, it's not overly surprising. But she also got me in touch with the superintendent of the local cemetery, and he had gotten a hold of me. This guy then reached out and got a hold of me to find out that yeah, there's a family here that talked about their some of their family was buried there, and they had a young lady that was buried here back about she was killed about 1939, and she was only about 5 years old. Her name was Belinda, and I went to the gravesite and I have pictures of the gravesite. Now
Wow.
we still have not found records of her why she would died or why she's there. It was just the era down here. The records are poor, but we're still researching today and trying to reach out to the family that found it. But we got this information, and Belinda, how would we come up with that name? How would we even know to come up with that name? Uh,
You start adding enough points, you're really
exactly.
starting to narrow down
hmm
the likelihood of just coincidence. If you're starting to line up a whole bunch of things that all point to the same thing, aren't
Exactly, and that's
you?
kind of what happened here. Here is she tells us during our session, died. It was with an uncle. We later found out that there was an uncle that by that name Oscar was his name, and there was an Oscar that died about 4 years ago at the age of 100. That would have been just about the right age at 1939, because the family had said this: the child died tragically, but we don't know how in 1939. And I saw that
Interesting.
I got a picture of the grave. It's sad. It's
Mm,
sad, and but we were able to take that information that we got that we wouldn't even have known to ask, and now I actually have a physical grave to go with it. So now comes
wow.
the real detective work, trying to put all of this together, and that's where we're at now.
Oh,
So,
fantastic. Well, you're going to have to keep us in the loop. We're going to have you
okay,
back on because I
okay,
could talk to you for another 2 hours. So, Larry, let's move into the professionalism arena
okay.
because I think that's the huge gap that we have going on here.
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there. I take it the field is not regulated at all. Is that correct?
No, and that's something I've tried to make inroads on, but it's difficult.
Yeah, of course it
Yeah,
is. You know,
there's good groups out. There's good groups out there that do good things and are trying to get other folks involved. So I don't want to say it's totally not like that, but it's there. We are not regulated by any one source. No.
and a lot of different modalities are suffering from the same thing in that now it's buyer beware. So,
hmm
okay,
hmm
so when you see all these websites, all these people hanging out their shingle, how can you tell if you're calling on someone that you can be relatively sure they're going to be professional about it and give your case, the best chance it has to being figured out?
Wow. Well, that's a difficult one because we could also talk for 2 hours on it. This is a big bugaboo of mine because I look at this. I want to see this field develop something like we had in law enforcement, where we have training and you must go through every year, get retraining and be updated on certain things, and just be qualified in what you do. And that's something that I have a huge interest in eventually developing. But if you, Gwilda, were on or wanting to bring somebody in to investigate the spirits in your house or whatever, first thing you're going to look for is transparency. Do they have a website? Do they have a place I can go look and find out what they're about? Which we try to do. Uh, do they charge? Let me tell you something. If anybody in this field charges you to come and do a paranormal investigation, run. It is generally felt by folks, and there's a lot of good people in the field. It's just like cop work. You only hear about the bad ones. There's a lot of good people out there that are really doing it for the right reasons, and those people will never charge you a penny. They will never make promises they can't keep. I'm an old cop. I'm an old flatfoot. I cannot return spirits to the other side. If I were to tell somebody that, or tell them that I can solve their problem, that's malfeasance.
It's
I
also
can
taking advantage of somebody in a desperate situation, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's one reason why you've got to look for folks that are if they're charging, run and hide. If they're charging you anything, run and hide. Uh, and yeah, you can do that. And here's the kickers. There's also people out there, Gwilda, that they have good intentions. They just don't realize what they don't know, and they'll say, "Yes, I can solve your problem." They get in there and said, "Okay, we've saged the house," and that's a whole nother
Oh,
topic I
don't
could
even
go
get me
into.
started.
I could go into, and now it's all fine. And they're, "Oh, thank you." And 3 weeks later, whatever's happening is happening again for whatever reason. And these people are already under stress for what happened before. They were told their problem is solved, and now it's not, and it's back. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And people can get sicker. They can do drastic things. So it's very important that you make sure that if a group's coming into your house, that they're not making promises they cannot keep. References, hey, is there somebody I can call that you've helped out before? Is a good thing to do.
Mm.
There's a lot of charlatans out there, and our group in particular, we're looking to collect evidence. I cannot pretend to solve problems. There, make things go away or make things better. I do tell folks this: you have dominion over your own life. You have control over you. So take control. That is about the strongest advice I will give to somebody in a situation like that.
Well, it's about that time in the show where I have to ask, Larry, what is your mission?
My mission is to find the answers as to what exists on the other side and to go where the evidence takes me. If after how many more years left I have on this planet, I'm able to find out that the evidence shows it truly is us. It's a concoction, for lack of a better term, of our own brain, our own being. Then that's where I've got to go. So our job is to find the answers and to go where the evidence takes us. That's our mission in a nutshell.
That's beautiful because that's exactly what's needed. And do you think that if there is availability of professional training for people that really want to take this to the next level, that people will study it and maybe get a certification and that can stand them above even if there isn't regulation?
That's what I would like to see happen, and there's some folks that have done that out there. I myself have put on classes just to give folks an idea of. I don't want people going out and doing illegitimate things. So I put on training to help them understand not only how to use the equipment, but how to talk to people, how to treat people, how to maintain a professional decorum. Yes, I think
That's
that
a
would
whole
help.
art form. That's a whole art
It
form.
is, and it's not that hard. But we've just got to get everybody to get on the same page. We've got to quit saying, "Well, I ask questions this way, and I don't like the way you ask them, so I won't bring the two together." Well, that's just silly. Or we will use this equipment. I could go on and on. We've got to come together with a consensus on how we want to conduct business. And until that happens, we will never build that gap I talked about earlier in the show of bringing the scientific side, the skeptical side, and the paranormal side together to truly come up with answers. And that's the only way we're going to be successful.
And that is such a valid point that there is so much going on in the world that we don't have the evidence behind it because we don't have the instrumentation that's sensitive enough to find it. I think there's so much more out there, and there's so much more about the so
Mhm.
much more that's out there than what we
Absolutely.
now recognize. What an adventure you're on.
But we can't get there, Gwilda, till we all get together. We all get together.
Absolutely.
I have no idea what you're able to do, or some of the other folks that have your ability are able to do. So let's come together and let's build something to build that bridge to find that answer.
That is the key, isn't it? Is building the bridge
Hmm.
between people in any
Yep.
arena.
Any arena.
Yeah. Well, Larry, it is that magic moment. It's gone so fast, and let's
Yeah, it
do this
has.
again sometime soon.
I would love to.
All
So
right. Thank you for coming on the show, dear.
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Larry has been wonderful, and we hope to have him back on the show again. Our guest this hour has been Lawrence F. Lawson, a law enforcement professional of more than 40 years. Larry has been actively investigating and researching the paranormal for more than 10 years. His website, paranormalfbi.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to visit past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. Please be sure to join us right here next time as this mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to a rapidly evolving world.